Welcome to Bloomberg Law. I'm Pacchia. We sat down with law professor and blogger Stephen J. Harper earlier today, and we asked him about the history of the treatment of student loans under the United States Bankruptcy Code. Here's what he had to say.
It's an interesting phenomenon. If you go back to 1976, when the federally insured student loan program was relatively new, there was a concern, although as near as anyone can tell, it wasn't based on anything factual, but rather it was based on anecdote and media hype. But there was this concern that somehow there was a tremendous moral hazard in having people, after they graduated from college, declare bankruptcy, and then the return on they would reap this great return on an investment that they never had to make and a loan they never had to repay. That kind of mythology wound up perpetuating itself in subsequent revisions to the Act, so that what happened initially in 1976 was the Congress said, well, we're going to require 5 years from when payment was due before we're going to allow you to be discharged in bankruptcy. Then in 1990, Congress extended it to 7 years. You're going to get a 7-year period, waiting period, before we're going to allow it to be discharged in bankruptcy, that is student loans. And then in 1998, it was eliminated altogether. So the rule became student loans are in the same category as criminal penalties, fines, back taxes, basically situations where it's virtually impossible, except for extraordinary circumstances that are called undue hardship and rarely granted, to get discharged from bankruptcy. And then in 2005, in an amendment to that according to Senator Durbin, no one can find the father, it's an orphaned amendment, private lenders were given the same kind of protection. And of course, we're now sitting in a world where there's $1 trillion of educational debt. And unfortunately for law students, all of them who have debt are in the top 3%, in the sense that only 3% of all educational debt is held by students who have more than $100,000 of student loans. But that's the average law school graduate. So now the question is, what do you do about it? And my feeling is that the problem of having those kinds of protections against lenders, and by lenders in this case, I guess you could say it includes in a way law schools, although because they're federally insured, law schools are still one step away from accountability. But certainly in the case of private lenders, there's no incentive for them to be particularly careful in who they lend money to, because they know that there's no way that whoever they lend the money to is going to ever be able to get rid of the debt short of dying. And so my feeling is that allowing that kind of option, two things would happen. One, I don't think many students at the end of the day would take it, because I think, for better or for worse, I do think there is a stigma associated with declaring bankruptcy that most students would find truly a last resort kind of situation, although there are many students, I believe, former students I should say, who are in that situation. But the more important thing I think that might happen is that you would introduce a greater level of accountability to the lending side of the equation. And all of a sudden, maybe you'd be sitting in a lender's office as a prospective law student, and the lender might ask you, for example, tell me why you want to be a lawyer, and what are you going to do with this degree if I lend you $150,000 to get it? That might provide pause, at least to some law students who really, I think, kind of wind up in law school as a default solution because they don't know what to do next.
Mr. Harper, I want to thank you for your time today, sir.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And before we sign off, I wanted to encourage our viewers to weigh in. The question is, should Congress amend the Bankruptcy Code to let individuals discharge student debt? Tell us what you think in the comments section on youtube.com/Bloomberg Law. If you'd like to learn more about the cases and issues we just discussed today, be sure to check out our offerings on BloombergLaw.com and also on the Bloomberg Terminal. You can follow our updates on Twitter, and you can see more of our videos, of course, on YouTube. I'm Pacchia. Thanks for watching.